The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is fucking boring. I'm just going to say it now, this is a super average Marvel series. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's bad, but it wasn't good either. Now, going into this, I was already not looking forward to this. WandaVision already set the bar fairly high, and I honestly didn't think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier could match it. I don't remember if it was a YouTube comment or a tweet, but I saw someone say something like, if they want to top WandaVision with this one, they're going to have to do a lot more than just an action series with punching and kicking, and they were absolutely right. WandaVision was fun mostly because of the wild shit you can do with Wanda's powers. And when you look at what Sam and Bucky can do, it doesn't really compare. They're kind of just normal people, and yeah, one of them is a super soldier, but all that really does is make the punching and kicking a little stronger. It's the same reason why I always felt that Steve Rogers was kind of boring, and his personality doesn't really make his character better either. He's just the perfect all-American action hero, and after a while, that can get kind of boring because he doesn't really have any flaws. I think Bucky is a lot more compelling because of his brainwashing, but that isn't really explored super heavily, mainly because in this series, Bucky's trying to shy away from his Winter Soldier persona. And Sam is even worse. See, because to me, he's always felt like one of those heroes that stood to the side and was never fully developed, but now he's being fully thrust into the spotlight, and I don't know, it just really doesn't work for me personally. So far, this series has bad preconceptions, bad characters, but of course that could all be fixed with a good story, right? Except the story is boring too. It just revolves around trying to stop this terrorist organization, the Flag Smashers. And this plotline is really not that compelling. It's pretty generic. There were so many scenes of the characters just talking, and if they weren't talking, they were just punching and kicking. There were so many parts where I had to rewind because I just couldn't be bothered to pay attention. I just didn't care. By the time we got to the end of the third episode, I realized that this series only had 6 parts, and we were already halfway done, and other than like 1 or 2 scenes, this series hadn't really piqued my interest in any way. The villains are also just awful. I don't know who they are, and we don't know anything about them for a good chunk of this series. And then they show us these emotional moments like this one guy sacrificing himself so that his fellow Flag Smashers can get away on a plane, and the leader, Carly, being sad because one of her loved ones passed away. And I can't get invested in this because at this point in this series, I still don't know who they are. All I know is that the Flag Smashers want the world to go back to a time like the blip. That's it. The side characters like Baron Zemo and Sharon Carter are not compelling either. Zemo sucked in Civil War because he was written super thinly. Like, we don't know anything about him for a good chunk of this series, and then by the end, we just find out that he wanted the Avengers to fight each other. And that's our main villain. And when he gets into this series, he's just the funny character. He really just operates as the comedic relief in this series, which may be a little bit better, but it doesn't really make me care about him a whole lot more. And I hardly know anything about Sharon Carter other than she's just Peggy Carter's niece and helps Steve and his friends every once in a while. And once we got to the halfway point and they revealed that one of the members of the Wakandan all-female bodyguards showed up to demand Zemo from Bucky, I honestly didn't care because I don't know who this person is. Like, who the fuck is this? Ayo? Who the fuck is I? Why couldn't you just get Okoye or Shuri or somebody from the Black Panther universe that I actually know and put her in the story? Like, I genuinely want to know if there was a single person out there who actually knew who this person was by name when she showed up. Because her appearance at the end of episode 3 was meant to be this big reveal scene, but it's soured because I don't know nor do I care about who this person is. I hope by this point I've made my stance on the characters clear. Some of them are just horribly underdeveloped, and we don't really know who a lot of them are, which makes it hard to get invested in their stories. Maybe I should start saying something nice about this series. I like the Black Super Soldier story with Isaiah. I thought that was pretty interesting and a good commentary on racism in America. I think the commentary of racism in general was pretty good because it actually did invoke the emotions out of me that I think it intended to invoke. I also liked how it sort of tainted Steve Rogers' legacy as Captain America, since he basically inherited a shield that he had no idea had a super bad history. And speaking of inheriting the shield, I think now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, Jonathan Walker. because I know I'm in the minority on this, but I actually like John Walker taking up the Captain America mantle. I'll be honest, I never really saw Sam or Bucky being the successor to the Shield, mostly because of the fact that they have their own identities already. Sam is the Falcon and Bucky is the Winter Soldier, and I never really like it when a character sort of just adopts another persona, because it makes them lose their individuality. Iron Man is slowly becoming one of my least favorite characters, because I feel like nowadays, everyone is pretty much just a carbon copy of Iron Man. So to have somebody that we don't know and somebody whose character hasn't been established yet adopt the Captain America mantle is honestly a lot more acceptable to me than a character that we already know just replacing their gimmick with Captain America. And I know people are going to think that I'm insane for saying that I like John Walker being the new Captain America more than Sam or Bucky or anybody else that we already know, but whatever. If there's one thing that I can say I didn't like about John Walker, it's the fact that his character arc was super predictable. We all knew that John Walker wasn't really going to be the guy to take up the Captain America name. And when they mentioned that he had passed every physical test and was the best candidate for the new Captain America, I already knew where this was headed. If he passed every physical test, clearly there was going to be something mental or emotional about him that didn't work. And once I saw John's temper flare up and he snapped on this one guy that spit in his face, I already knew that was going to be John Walker's fatal flaw. Because Steve Rogers would never act like this, even if somebody did spit in his face. And this was never proven any better than when John's best friend Lamar got killed by Carly, and John just eviscerates this poor guy who didn't even kill him out of anger. I love this scene. I love the parallels that can be drawn with Steve. At this point, John and Steve are both guys who watched their best friends get hurt, and you can really see what separates the two after John's scene. Steve uses the shield to disable Tony's armor just enough to incapacitate him and stop him from hurting Bucky any further. Meanwhile, John uses his shield to brutally murder this guy, even though this guy said that he wasn't the one who killed Lamar. But John was just so furious that he killed him anyways, as revenge. I also think this behavior plays really well into John suffering from PTSD. It's mentioned in the same episode that all the awards John got from his time in the military remind him of the single worst day of his life. So you know this guy has got some demons within him, and they were being fully realized during this scene where he murders this guy. I also love that they brought up the idea of the super serum. Like, they said in this and the very first Captain America in 2011 that the super serum should be taken with caution because it essentially amplifies your existing characteristics, and that Steve was able to take it without any negative side effects because he was so pure of heart. But this also shows what happens when it's used on somebody like John Walker, because John's symptoms of PTSD are only exacerbated by the serum, and the serum ended up corrupting him. I just really liked this comparison of Steve Rogers and John Walker. And I know this is going to piss some people off, but the idea of a corrupt Captain America was honestly probably the most interested I've been in the Captain America character ever. Yeah, you heard that right. John Walker got me more interested in Captain America than Steve Rogers ever did. Now, I know I said before that the general plotline of the Flag Smashers was not really that engaging, but if there was a point where I did like the plot, it was probably during episode 5. The second to last episode. And I think I only liked it because of how much fun I wasn't having in the prior episodes. Because after having episode after episode of Sam and Bucky trying to find Carly and the Flag Smashers and try to talk to them, they finally get laid off of their mission and they go back to their normal lives as civilians. Now, as boring as I thought the Flag Smashers storyline was, and while I can't say I was a huge fan of this thing with the Wilson family and their boat either, this was honestly just so much more refreshing. This story with Carly and Zemo and all that was wearing pretty thin on me, so when Sam and Bucky were sent home and Zemo was sent back to prison, I was more than happy with it. Seeing these guys just working on a boat together and seeing Bucky bond with Sam's family was honestly the most fun I had with this series. It's not super exciting, and I didn't even really care all that much when they brought it up at the beginning, but I think I liked it so much more at this point because I just didn't care about the main mission anymore. I also mentioned before how I liked the Isaiah subplot, and this episode takes the time to explain Isaiah's story as a super soldier and how he grew to become bitter due to the racism that he experienced, which was probably some of the deepest and realest shit I've seen in the entire MCU. I really, really like this. But going back to the things that I did not like, I hated the humor in this series. It's just so weird. Like, you can tell at some points they were just fishing for spots where they could put in little wisecracks and quips. This scene after the meeting with Dr. Nagel of Sam and Bucky fighting over who should follow who based on what happens in action movies while they are under fire honestly just comes across to me as super awkward and misplaced. It just makes me roll my eyes because you know they're trying to find little moments like this to put in some humor and try to make you laugh even if it's not appropriate for the situation. But anyways, by the end, things are wrapped up pretty nicely, even if it is done a bit awkwardly. Sam, Bucky, and Sharon fight the Flag Smashers and stop them. Carly dies in Sam's arms, which I really didn't care about. And they even do that stupid thing where the villain character says, "I'm sorry," after all the bad things that they've done, right before they die in the hero's arms. And John gets his redemption by saving this truck full of people, as opposed to getting revenge on Carly, which I thought was cool, but then they just have him hanging out with Sam and Bucky like they're old friends, which was really jarring to me, considering the last time these guys met, they tried to kill each other over a shield. But I did like how they wrapped up each character's arc. Sam was able to give Isaiah the recognition that he deserved and essentially finished the Flag Smashers' mission to stop the GRC with his amazing speech. And in that, I liked how Sam sympathizing with Carly was very reminiscent of the goody two-shoes nature of Steve Rogers. Bucky finishes his amends, John is officially dubbed the US agent, and I love that it's the same suit that he had before, only it's black, which is much more appropriate for the type of person that he is. And Sharon is pardoned. And as far as Sam being the new Captain America by the end, like I said, I'm not really a fan of it, and it might take me some time to get Steve Rogers out of my head when I see that shield, but I think there's a chance Sam can get there. And that new Cap Falcon hybrid suit definitely helps. Plus, there's going to be a Captain America 4 now with Sam Wilson, so it really looks like this universe is going all in on the new Cap. And I guess I was also wrong in my WandaVision review when I said that these series were going to be for people that were second-tier heroes and were probably not going to get their own movies. So in the end, even though I was bored for a lot of this series with the monotonous sitting and talking and the fights that had so little life and was just a bunch of punching and kicking, there was still a lot of deep and meaningful shit that I could vibe with. So in the end, I'm giving this series a perfectly average score of 5 out of 10. John Walker's still the best character. All right, bye.